Hello and welcome. This is Debbie B. Ramsey here in Baltimore, Maryland, and welcome to my channel. This will be my second video. And if you saw the first video, it mainly touched upon who I am and what I experienced as a police officer in Baltimore, Maryland, and how does one police as a Black woman. Today, I would like to touch upon what it feels like to me to be a Black woman in the United States of America. And historically speaking, when we go back to, I would say, let's say the 17th century, when the enslaved people came to this continent, that Black women, we were primarily brought here to be breeders, to make people, because this country was buying and selling people, and that was an industry. So Black women who were forced to come here, our primary purpose was to be breeders and to make human beings that we could not keep and nurture. And if we fast forward to the 20th century, during the time where I came into being, for the most part, I'm a mid-century person. Then we were classified as welfare queens. In other words, drainers on society. You know, in spite of all the contributions that we have made, the backbone of this country, the backbone of families, that we would be labeled. And let's take a look at that. Who was doing the labeling? Who was doing the labeling? And what was the benefit to have Black women labeled in such a negative light? And I'm saying all this to lay the groundwork for this channel that touches upon policing like a Black girl. And there may be someone listening and watching this video that may not have a clue to what it really looks like to be a Black woman in this country. So for those of you all who are tuning in, and you may not look like me, and you may not be of my gender, I would like to just give you a little to lay down the groundwork. So as I'm speaking about how I was able to police as a Black girl, what does that mean? If you cannot associate or understand what that means, then you missed the whole point. So let's just take a look at how women looking like me enter into the law enforcement profession. And this is not something that has, we have not been there, let's say, 100 years. Maybe not even a good 50 years. Maybe a good 50 years on the, perhaps, if you stretch it. But to say that, I would say for certain within the last 40 years that we were given the same amount of responsibilities and power as our male counterparts. Because early on, when women came into the police department, they were what they would call matrons. They wore skirts, they had handbags, shoulder straps, they wore pumps, because they were not expected to do anything physical like their counterparts. So it was a it was they were given responsibilities to supplement the officers on the street. Is I'm basically like an administrative assistant. And if there were situations where children or women were involved, that was something that a woman officer, I don't know if they got paid the same amount of money. They were police officers. That's something I would like to research. But just to lay the groundwork as to number one, what a Black woman is in the United States of America, how we have been labeled, and what expectations of us are from other people, not from within us. When I say us, I'm talking about Black women. We have a sisterhood. We are a very unique group, a population in this country. We are very unique, and I don't know if that carries over to an understanding of what that means. Very unique in a very positive way. like I said before, when we were um, enslaved, we were primarily here to be breeders and to take care of other people and to give birth to babies that we would see that would be sold off. We could not take care of them, or to be impregnated by those who claim that they own another human being, which we all know that cannot happen. But people felt they could own someone and force themselves upon them, and which is why we Black Americans, we look the way we look. We look very different, and there's a reason for it. If you look at my last name is Ramsey. Do I look like a Ramsey? Do I look like a Ramsey? And so most of us we have European names, and that's an indication of people who claim that we belong to them. They put their stamp on us. This is who you are, but that's a whole different topic. But it all comes into play with what Black women are in this country and how we came to being and what our purpose and how we were able to crawl out of that labeling and be our true selves. And our true selves, we have a sisterhood. We have a very unique sisterhood. I would say that we, our strength, we're known for our strength. We're known for our resilience. Yeah. We're known for our intellect, our creativity, nurturing. In spite of all that, of what others may look upon us, we know better. Truth be told, we know better. We know who we are. We know what we're capable of doing. And we know that we have the strength, the backbone to carry families. We're the backbone of this country, if you think about it. Well, you don't have to think about it. It should be obvious. So we're the backbone of this country. We're the backbone of families. We're the backbone of our Black men, and we're the front bone of our Black men. and uh, and we carry it very well. So that being said, for anyone who are just totally clueless about being a Black woman, period, just period, that's just scratches the surface. There's so much more that goes with that that I'm not equipped to expound upon that for the totality of women. I can only speak to myself that I am aware of my strength. I'm aware of my power. I'm aware of my influence. I'm aware of my capabilities, and that all those attributes um, led me to the road of becoming a law enforcement officer here in Baltimore, Maryland. Now, are we clear with that? Are we all on the same page? We have a kind of understanding. And for those of you who look like me, you know exactly what I'm saying. So here's the thing. We had a police commissioner here in Baltimore before the influx of women joined the ranks. And when he was asked, what did he think about women coming on the police department, on the force, he blatantly said publicly, they're a bunch of powder puffs. They can't do this job. And that's what he called us, powder puffs. Yeah, powder puffs. And that was to deter any woman, Black or white, from even thinking about joining the department. When you had that top person at the top of that organizational chart saying, "That's what I think about you. You can come on, be on the police department. You're not equipped to do this job. This job is strenuous and um, it's very physical and takes a lot of smarts to do this job. And you women, you're just not equipped to do that. But we can carry on households and we can uplift our entire country and we can change the course of history. But we cannot do this job. Don't even think about it." So that was the genesis of the climate. That was the climate here in Baltimore. as far as women. And I can only imagine how many women thought about joining the police department but were discouraged. Think about that. Think about if you were thinking about joining a corporation and the CEO says, you as a group, we don't think you can do the job effectively. Would you want to be in that atmosphere, in that environment, knowing full well that there was some doubt about your capability, regardless of how much training, regardless of how much education, regardless of how much desire, regardless of anything, that no matter what you do, it would never be sufficient. And no one had that confidence in you or the faith in you to do the work effectively. Think about that. So I would imagine there might have been women who wanted to join the police department and were just so discouraged when they would hear a commissioner to make a blanket statement that he had no faith in you at all, no matter who you are, what you are. So here we come as a group of women. And when I joined the police department, I think I said in the first video that I knew what I was getting into, but I don't think I touched upon what they knew they were getting into. I knew I was going to a predominantly white, historically predominantly white male profession. I knew that. But guess what? They also knew that I was someone's daughter, mother, sister, aunt. And so they knew what they were getting also. So when I signed up, I knew what I was getting into, generally speaking. I found out later what I really, really, really was getting into. And they knew what they were getting. And neither one of us, we would adapt and perhaps change or become enlightened. But that was the baseline. The baseline was, hey, you called for me, you sent for me. I signed up. You could have said yay or nay. You said yay, so you sent for me. That's how I looked at it when I filled out the application. Yeah, you sent for me, and ta-da, here I am, reporting for duty. And you knew who I was reporting for duty was. This is it. I was maybe 30, 40 years younger than what I am now, but basically still got the same parts. So they knew that too. Now, were they prepared for that? No. Were we welcome? No. It was mandated, federal law, that could not discriminate, gender, race, creed, all that jazz. And so it was almost like a forced feeding. You know, I have a little baby and they don't, they need to get some nutrients, and you're gonna, you're gonna be fed because it's important. It's best for you. So we came along was like a forced feeding. And one of the things that gave me a lot of comfort was knowing that there were other Black women who was coming on at the same time I was. And for me, that was very comforting. You know why? Because with Black women, speaking for myself, there is a understanding that we share a lot, not just the culture or the language or how we dress, but we shared an innate ability to back one another up. We had a clear understanding of that we all at some point, we don't know the day or the hour or the time, that we all at some point experience some devastating, discriminatory comments and act against us. And for us to push through and make it to this level, it was not handed to us on a silver platter. So we knew that. So we knew that when we were there, we had, and we didn't talk about it, how'd you get here? Mm-mm. We knew that it was a struggle, and yet we kept showing up. When you are applying, there are many, many levels that you have to pass, and to get to all those levels with the green light, so to speak, it takes a lot. Because I would not be surprised if there were more women who applied who did not make it to the academy than those who actually made it to the academy. So we understood that we were in a number, in an elite number, and not because someone paved the way for us, and not because someone gave us something. we knew that we earned that position. We knew that we had a right to be there for whatever reason. Like I said before, it was a means towards an end for me. Maybe some of the other women that really, really wanted to be in law enforcement. There could be many, many reasons why at that time we black women we stepped up and we stepped over and we kept on stepping. And it could have been for whatever the reason. We really didn't talk about if it came up like in a casual conversation. Like someone asked me, yeah, I was going through divorce, needed money, needed a job, needed something legit, or maybe um, I think some of the women husbands may have been on the department, or they may have had an uncle or a brother or someone who really gave them the inside scoop, what it's really like. And so they were able to make the determination, hey, I can do that too. Or maybe people in their family was encouraging them. And some were wanted to become attorneys. They wanted to really get into the criminal justice profession. And being a police officer was just one step. And some had aspirations of starting out locally, like with Baltimore Police Department, and to continue their career and go to the federal side with Department of Justice, with the FBI, CIA, or whatever. And some of the women, they were able to do that too. So we all had our own motivations, but at the end of the day, we were all there together, and we all worked so well together. And oftentimes there would be um, situations how we would help one another without helping one another, without asking for help. We could see. And oftentimes, if I were on a call and I had backup, if I would see women like me uh, coming to back me up, I felt relieved because number one, I knew none of us were going to escalate the situation. I knew that for a fact, and I knew that there was going to be some resolution and some creativity in saying, "Hey, Dave, what's going on? What's this situation about?" And I knew that I could give the information, and we can put our heads together and come up with a resolution that we all agreed upon. You know, and it was amazing to me. And was I surprised about that? Nope, no, because I have worked with women all my life. I started out, I think my first job working with women was in North Carolina, tobacco fields, working with the women side by side and seeing how strong and efficient and accurate and determined from sun up to sundown without complaining. So I got a sense of understanding what it looked like working shoulder to shoulder with women and to feel confident and to aspire to be and to emulate them. So that was not my first time working with women. And then before I went joined the police department, I did a lot of administrative um, jobs where I worked with Department of Housing, uh, Pratt Library. Pratt Library is one of the largest libraries on the planet. That was my first job. I worked at NC State University as the administrative assistant for both registrars. In NC State, at that time had like over 20 some thousand students, and I worked in the registrar's office. You can imagine how much work that was. I was the um, administrative assistant to the vice president of development in St. Augustine's College. So I had a sense of working and being a team player and sharing information and disseminating information for the better of us all. And for me, working in the police department was pretty much similar. It was only thing different. It was a little bit more physical. So I'm saying all that to say that to give you a sense of not only how I police as a black girl, but I had no other choice. And for me, it was very natural. Nothing felt unnatural about the entire experience I had, whether I was working in plain clothes, undercover, in uniform, on the street, community policing. I put myself in all of those uniforms and all those positions. I carried myself. And one of the things I did appreciate, I think that when you are true to yourself and people see that, when I was a detective in criminal investigation division, oftentimes we would have meetings and a gathering, how we're going to investigate a certain situation and who the players would be and which team would lead that investigation. And one of the things I was a little bit surprised about, I was really surprised about, and for me it was it gave me confirmation that what I was exuding from my being as an independent thinker inside of an organization that had a lot of rules and regulations, and not too oftentimes you can think out of the box. But one of the things I was a little bit surprised about was my sergeant would come to me and would sincerely and honestly ask me my opinion about an investigation and how they see it, and this is how they're going to conduct it. And he will always ask me, Debbie, do you feel comfortable about this particular operation? And I would look at it, examine it, study it, and I would either say, I'm not comfortable with that. Is there another way we can do that? Well, I feel um, somewhat concerned about the safety of not just myself but others involved. And could we modify this? And I'm not going to say 80% of the time. I'm not going to say 90% of the time. 100% of the time, if I felt that something could possibly not go very well, and I would back it up with why, they would not do it. And I do believe if I had been that person that would rubber stamp or just say, yeah, boss, I can do that, I can do this, oh yeah, we can. I think if I was that person, I don't think he would have came to me and asked me for my sincere opinion about which way an investigation should go and what role I was going to play, and if I felt okay with it. And there were times when I just said, I don't. This is this has some this has some elements that could not be what we would like to see happen for all parties concerned. And let's just take another look. Let's see what else we can do with this. Or the timing was probably not correct. Or the information or the data or the intel that we have received up to this point would justify would justify moving forward. And something just came to my mind. I don't know if I should share this or not, but I'm going to share it because it happened. And because I had some administrative experience before I came to the police department, like I just indicated. Um, so some of the detectives in my squad, when they would write warrants, search warrants, they would ask me, say, Deb, would you mind reading over and make sure, we have everything in there, or, it's grammatically correct, or there's something else may need to be done before we take it to the judge to get them to sign off on it. And I'll never forget this one time. And sometimes let's just be honest. Sometimes the warrants would be, how can I explain this? Sometimes the writing of warrants, when you have written so many warrants similar, they could just be like a format. You know what I mean? So anyway, I remember this one time, some of the guys, it was a whole nother squad. It wasn't even my squad. They said, hey, Dad, would you do me a favor? Would you just read over this search warrant and just check it and see, how it sounds, how it looks, because we want to take it to the judge to get it signed. And I read it, and I looked at it. I read it again, and I took it back to the detectives. And they said, well, how does it look? They said, anything needs to be done in it. I said to them, Oh, it looks fine, except you left out two things. They said, what was that? I said, you left out once upon a time and they lived happily ever after, because this is a fairy tale. And I was forthright and honest about, because that's how I felt about it. I just felt like it was not so much like a rubber stamp, but it just felt like something that you would just generically put together, and you just filled in different names and locations and addresses. And that's how I felt about it. So to be um, truthful and honest, honest and truthful about what others are expecting, to be truthful and honest about how you are, how I, let me just put it first person. I was I was consistently able to be honest with myself and truthful to others about how I saw things, how I perceived them, and once I processed them, what it looked like to me. It may not look like that to you. They could have given the same warrant to another detective and say, hey, it's fine, send it up. And the judge could have very well have signed it. I don't know if they modified it, but I do know that this is how I felt about it. And and so, policing is a black girl. And I draw on that came from knowing how important it is to be honest and truthful, not just towards others, but with yourself. Had I said anything else different, and after I've read that, not so much that uh, I'm going to give them the green light, yeah, move forward. How would I feel about knowing that there was something there that I didn't feel that was fair, accurate? A lot of information was left out, and it would not do, it would not fare well for how we look as a agency to take something like that for a judge to sign. So it wasn't like reflected just on that particular group, but reflected on us as a whole. I remember another occasion where I'm just talking top of my head right now. I guess y'all can tell that. I remember another occasion where when I was in uniform police, I forgot what kind of incident it was. It might have been like a homicide or something. And usually, a homicide, the post office, like the first officer on the scene, so they get a lot of information before homicide detectives get there. I think that's what it was. And on my initial report, I put in as much information as I could. I was first officer on the scene, talked to people, witnesses, what happened, time of death, ammo, all that kind of stuff. And I remember writing the report, sent it up for my supervisor, signed it, and usually you go to um, a repository, like a centralized location in headquarters. And evidently, what happened, the defendant was, I'm sorry, the suspect in this case, that I had deemed as possible suspect, they had retained an attorney, a defense attorney. And so the defense attorney will always get the police reports to get the initial information, what happened. And did you know that defense attorney actually wrote a letter to the commissioner? Because that's the only way I would have known, saying that the report that I had written was so thorough and accurate that, and I don't think it was in favor to his client, but he just wanted to thank the officer for giving so much detail, um, and not being biased towards, what was happening. And again, I would get little bits of confirmation of how I was operating as an officer, that yeah, that is the right thing to do. And I'm telling you, it's easy to goose step and follow other officers who might have behaviors that may not be best for the general public civil rights. I'm not saying all, but it would have been, I'm telling you, it would have been easy to fall into that if you want to go along to get along, and especially in an operation, in an organization that primarily has not been acquainted with this new population of women, especially Black women, who are coming on the department, and we are bringing a whole separate, unique way of operating. and the unlikes that they have ever seen before. And we're coming in as Black mothers. We're coming in as older sisters. You know, we're coming in as, wow, wow, this is, they say, this is a different animal here. And we can be relied upon and trusted for the most part. So, um, policing like a Black girl, you really have to understand what being a Black woman is in the United States. Being a Black woman and on other continents totally different. But because of our history here in the United States and how we look, you know, how we look is an affirmation of the abuse that somebody had along the way. Somebody was abused in a horrific way. And I know in my family, 7 of us, no 2 of us have the same complexion. And we come from the same DNA gene pool. How is that possible? Well, it's possible. If you took biology 101, you know it's possible. So I'm saying all this to say, because we're almost like a hybrid, you know? We have a lot of European blood in us. We have a lot of African blood in us. We have a lot of Asian blood in us. So we are a mixture of all the continents on this planet. On this planet. And I think of us, I say, we're like a hybrid. And then we had to come up with our own culture. We had to come up with our own way of just surviving. You know, I don't know of any other people. I haven't talked to all the people on the planet Earth, but I'm just saying my experience and listening to my, I was fortunate enough to remember my grandmother on my dad's side. She was born like in 1867. To actually see someone born in 1867, here it is 2023. So I can go all the way back to, I've actually looked into the eyes of someone born in 1867. And today I can look into the eyes of someone who's born in 2023. What a span. What a span that is. Look at all the experiences of what that is. So my arc of how I navigate through this world, it is a spectrum of like, whew, it's a lot. And we're still here. And, you know, I think about the term Black girl magic. I don't think of it as Black girl magic. I just think of it as Black girl determination, sheer will, strength, confidence. And if you want to call that magic, it's magical. I wouldn't call it magical. I just call it Black girl being a Black girl. And so whatever walk of life that we choose to be in, we're going to make a difference. We're going to make a difference. So by me policing like a Black girl, a lot of it has to do with just me being a Black girl, you know, here in America. And what does that look like? And so I would like to share that with you all today. And this is the second video. And hopefully you will come back and be with me as I continue to talk about some of my experiences. I will probably try to get a little bit more detail with some of the incidents that I was involved with. And I just think that I came out of because I had that Black girl sheer will determination and to see things through. And that for us all at the end of the day, still be standing and better off. So I want to thank you all for joining me today and to give some insight as to what it means to, first of all, to be a Black girl, to be a Black woman, and then to enter into a profession that is primarily historically white male. How come that did not just chase us away? We do not ride off into the night quietly or peacefully unless we choose to. And, you know, to this day, we have not had a woman police commissioner in Baltimore City. So the entire history from, I guess, 1850, Baltimore City had its first police department. Here it is, 2023. Well, that's 172, 73 years later. So, you know, the wheels of justice turn slowly, but we are here and continue to make a difference. And for me, it was one of the best professions I had ever been in. I learned so much about community. I didn't realize how much I loved community until I became a public servant at this level. And if if you are lacking the love of community, that's going to be a deficit in the operations of anyone who wants to be successful and live to tell their story, to love the community that you are serving, and to be able to love yourself at the same time, and to relate to one another. And I think the last time that we were speaking, I gave three primary ingredients as to why I live to tell the story. And the first ingredient was to be confident in yourself and know yourself. The second ingredient was to share the power that was given. And the third ingredient, relating. Can you relate? Can you relate to people? Can you form relationships? Because I'm a big proponent of when you can relate and form relationships, now you have become a relative of that person and you have something in common. And now, before you want to be heavy handed with someone, you're going to think twice because, hey, this is not a foreign person to me. This is not someone I don't know anything about. This is someone I care about. And when you care about someone, hopefully you will not be as unfair and heavy handed on them as if you didn't know. So I'm a big proponent of relating. Find something, there's always something we can relate to. When I meet someone, if nothing else, if nothing else, I can find relatable. Right now, we're in the same space at the same time, and that is the for me the jumping off point, if you will, of how we can start a conversation. If for nothing else, hey, we're here together in the same space at the same time. Why are you? What's going on with you? Why are you here? We start with that. Sometimes I meet people and we have the same last name, and let's start to come. Hey, well, where are your people from? Are they? I'm the Ramseys from North Carolina. You know the Ramseys? Yeah, I know some. Or no, we're from South Carolina. I said, okay. Sometimes meet someone who's might be a black man. Well, what do we have in common? We're black. I may meet a woman, a white woman. What do we have in common? We're a woman. I may meet a child. Who are we? I've had a child. I see a little baby. I know. So there's always something that we can find relatable. And I think that is the beginning of caring and understanding and being kind to one another. I do believe that finding something relatable is the lowest common denominator of being kind to someone. Why would you be kind to someone that you just don't know anything about? Why would you care about someone that you can't see anything common, a commonality? Why would you want to help someone if you feel like there's no connection? Once we have connected, once we have found something that we can relate to, once we have determined there's a commonality, and at the end, when you do all that, guess what? We all belong to the same tribe, right? A body of people that have a common interest. And I think that is the key to us, whether you're in law enforcement or not, but especially if you're in law enforcement, all that kind of power to before you just lower the boom on someone. Hopefully, there's something that's relatable and something that you can see in that person that you see yourself. And I think it's what relating is when you can see yourself in someone else. And depending upon what your responsibilities are, especially in law enforcement, I think being in law enforcement is such a unique occupation. To have that kind of power and authority to take away someone's freedom of movement, that's a lot. That's a lot of power. It's a lot of power, and and not to be treated in a way that it's a given. It's not. How do I know this? Well, believe it or not, we right now as we speak, there's some law enforcement officers who have um, been on the other side of the law. And I'm a big proponent of when people say, it's only a few bad apples today. When you look at today's, um, when you look at how, for the most part, how people look at policing today, police officers, it's different. It's a little bit different. And oftentimes I hear people make excuses for police officers saying, well, it's just a few rotten apples. It's just a few that's a deviating. I don't buy that. And I'm going to tell you what, mathematically, it doesn't make sense. Because when I was in the police department, okay, in the average squad, you might have 12 or 14 officers. That's a squad. So let's say one officer is really violating people's civil rights. What do you think the other 13 officers are going to do? We're going to pull that officer up. Hey, we're all in the same uniform. You're giving us a bad name. You're not helping. Because we had one situation where an officer was shot in the face and he didn't do anything to that person. But you know the person who shot him in the face said that he had had an experience with another officer that was so disrespectful to him that he had said, the next officer I see, I'm just going to shoot him in the face. And that's what he did. That's what happened. So when I hear people say that it's only a few officers that is giving some, like I say, when I used the example before, in a squad of 14, if one is hurting us as a whole, we're going to pull them over to the side and say, get it together, straighten it out. This is not happening. But let's say it's the opposite. Let's say 13 out of 14 are just off the deep end. And you might have one officer that is, for the most part, not violating someone's civil rights. Who outnumbers who? That one officer can go to all 13 and try to get them on the right pathway. So that's what's happening today. That's my take on it. That's my take on it. Because there's nowhere in the world a few officers has that kind of power that they are going to diminish everyone else and give the majority of police officers and law enforcement officers a negative way of how people are looking at them. It doesn't happen like that. So I think people need to stop it. Stop saying that. It's just a few bad ones. Because there are a few bad ones. Can we get the good ones to pull the bad ones over to the side and straighten them out? Just don't stop with that. And I heard recently one of the top officials involved with police department say to me that, I said, how come you don't get out the car and walk? I said, I used to get out and walk all the time. I love getting out my car and walk and meet people. Oh, Debbie, well, the climate has really changed and they're afraid to get out the car. No, she said, not afraid to get out the car. She said, but the people don't like them. The community, the public are just turned off with police officers. They don't trust them. They don't like them. They said bad things to them. I said, well, who told you that? Who told you that the community do not like police officers? And if it's true, or what are you doing about that? I know you have a public information officer. What are you doing about that if that's not true? And if it is true, what are you doing about it? You just want to let that sit? You really believe that the community do not like their police officers, the law enforcement agents? Well, what are you doing about that if it's true? And if it's not true, what are you doing about it? So, it's a lot to be said for community policing. It's a lot to be said for police reform. I say throw the whole thing out and start all over again. This is not working. It can't work because it started off on the negative, patrolling people who want to be free and find their own freedom. So it started out on the negative. It started out top heavy, so it's being toppled over, and people are trying to hold it up like the Tower of Pisa. That's what's it's leaning. It's the G-force will finish it off. If we do not come up with a whole different model for a whole different era, we are in the 21st century. This is not working. This system worked for those people who claim that they own people back in the 1800s, 1700s. Yeah, it worked then. It ain't working now. People, we're not having it. People not having it. So let's come with something different instead of doing the same thing over and over again. And we can do that. And we can still protect the public, but it doesn't have to be like this. It doesn't have to be this model. This model is not working. And take it from someone who has been inside, who have been inside of the workings. As a former detective in Internal Investigation Division, investigating police officers, uh, criminally charged, I've seen it, done it. So I've seen how the sausage is made. It ain't pretty. And everybody don't live to tell a story. And that's what this channel is all about. How we live to tell a story. And hopefully you can transfer some of the things I'm saying over to your life, your lives, as whatever professional career that you are entering. At the end of the day, just being kind to one another, genuinely understanding and have confidence in yourself and being sober-minded to be able to process information as best you can, and to know the situation, to know the situation, to know the situation. I always say, people say you got to know, understand the situation. Yeah, that's true. I always say you have to know the solution, because for every situation or problem, if you will, there's a solution, and it's more than one solution to a problem. So I understand when you understand the solution, then you can work towards making that come to light, making that a reality. What is the solution? If you don't know the solution, what are you working towards? So thank you for sharing and coming to my channel, and I hope to see you soon. And this calendar back here does say October, but it really is November 2023. I'll make sure I'm up to date. Take care. This is Debbie Ramsey signing out right here in beautiful downtown Baltimore, Maryland. Be more.